Sorry, I had that set to loop. Hi, everybody. This is Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show, where we watch old 16mm films and then ruminate on it, talk about it. So I'm inside because there are people mowing outside. So there you go. I'm in the basement. Remember the basement? Our good friends, the basement. So today, I know there's a lot of anxiety because I'm feeling it about tomorrow's election. Today is all about voting, but tomorrow we are going to just, I don't know, maybe I'll just show cartoons. I don't know. I haven't figured out. But it's not going to be anything political. It'll just be entertainment. And one of the things that I was thinking initially, I was like, yeah, if the election doesn't go the way that I hope that it does, and if you have followed me, you know I lean pretty far to the left. Some might say I'm a socialist. But if things don't go the way that I had hoped, I was like, well, I'm just not going to do my show anymore. And I'm like, that's a horrible idea. We have a great community here. And I know some of you do not agree with my position, but we still have a community, and we should engage and continue to be a community. So I will continue to do my show, even if I'm horribly depressed. So there you go. All right. So I got quite a couple of films here. Two of them are for newly, basically 18-year-olds, for young people who are basically in high school or fresh out of high school. And this is Voting at 18. Enjoy.
My name is Pat Kirk, and this is me, just a few months before my 18th birthday.
On June 30th, 1971, 11 million Americans between the ages of 18 and 21 suddenly became eligible to vote. The 26th Amendment to the Constitution joined three others, which have broadened the base of our democracy. The 15th Amendment, the 19th Amendment, the 24th Amendment. And with the 26th Amendment, youth power became a new political force in America.
The first thing is to register. That's what it's all about. I've already called somebody at the registration office to find out how.
Well, if he called here, he probably talked to me. I told him what I tell everyone. Excuse me. Registration office. Well, you can register if you'll be 18 on or before the day of the next election. No, you don't need your birth certificate. But if you were born in another country, you do need to bring in your citizenship papers or other evidence of citizenship. Fine, you're welcome.
Registration requirements vary from state to state, and often within a state. You can find out what they are by calling your local government office.
I don't know how to get it off. I don't have much money, though.
A lot of important things are going on these days, and most of them have to do with government. When you get right down to it, government is voters. Take the police. Since the police work for the local government, they work for the local voters. And that means when you vote, you've got some say in the matter. Like, how should they deal with the public during disturbances? Then there's government at the state level. Like, shouldn't we have lower tuition at the state colleges and universities? And there's national government. Like, is space exploration worth what it costs? And a lot of things have to do with government on all the levels. How are we going to rebuild the cities? How are we going to solve race problems? And how should the drug problem be handled? And consumer protection. And transportation problems. And pollution problems. And war. We talk about these things a lot, but now we've got a chance to do something about them. But we can vote only if we register.
States require registration sometime before an election. For many states, 30 days is the restricted period. Except for this, you can register almost any time in most states.
Okay, fine. Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the statements you are making are true?
I do.
Okay, I'll fill this in and then you can sign it.
Registering procedure varies, but essentially, it's just a matter of filling out forms.
Okay, fine. We'll mail you a verification card in a week or 10 days.
Okay, thank you.
Hi.
I read that in some places they were giving kids a rough time. But I haven't heard about anybody having trouble where I live.
Pat's friends are registering in their home communities, using their home addresses. But what about students who live away from home at college? What is their home address? Students in some college towns are a large part of the population. If they vote there, some of the local people are concerned that they might lose control of their own communities.
Well, frankly, this is our town. I doubt very much if they'd like to have us coming into their town telling them what to do. Well, we don't like it here either.
I think they ought to vote where they live and not here.
Well, we do live here most of the year round and care what does go on in this community. So why shouldn't we be able to say what we feel by voting? There are other people who live here just a short length of time and not permanently, and they're able to vote.
Yes, I think it's all right for students to vote. It gives them a better chance to see how the government is run.
In a few places, registration has been difficult for students, but most often, new voters like Pat Curtis have no trouble registering.
There's a primary coming up soon. I want to register in time for that. That's why we're talking a lot now about who to vote for. We're trying to make up our minds.
A lot of people try to help you make up your mind during election campaigns.
I really couldn't say.
You've seen all this before, but when it's aimed at you, you have to make an effort to study the candidates and the issues.
In favor of things like busing and...
It's hard to really know all you want about people who are running for election. For instance, how they stand on women's lib, or welfare, or pollution.
One way is to keep an eye out for the public statements candidates make. What do they say about public issues? Voters affect public issues through the people who hold public office. Learning the attitudes and programs of candidates makes your vote more effective. You don't have to join a political party to register or vote, but you may want to if the party seems to reflect your own ideas and points of view. Supporting a political party allows your ideas to have more impact.
What you see when they get elected, see how much they promise and how much they give after they're elected. That's what makes
I'm going to be ready to vote when the time comes. All of us are.
Voting itself is very easy. Newspapers, radio, and television will tell you when to vote. And if you don't know where, you can find the location of your polling place by calling your local government office. First, you identify yourself by signing your name and address. The election judges check the rolls to make sure you're eligible.
I think you misspelled it there. It's two F's. You can't have it misspelled.
You may vote by paper ballot, by voting machine, or both. If you use a paper ballot, be careful to mark it properly. Put the mark in the box of your choice. An improperly marked ballot will be thrown out, and your vote will not be counted. If you vote by machine, you'll find instructions on it. There may also be a demonstration model of the machine in the polling place. If you have any questions, an election judge will help you.
We're going to register, and we're going to vote. And we're going to have our say in the things that are going on.
So I remember the voting machines. There was a couple of times I voted, and I almost always voted in Raleigh because by the time I was 18, I was in Raleigh going to school. I was one of those annoying college students that was populating and shifting the political dynamic of Raleigh. Not really, but anyways, yeah, I remember being excited to the chunk, and then the curtains close, and then it's like, you do the slides, or sometimes there's like a punch. There's different things that I think one time I used a punch. One time they had special pens where I had to connect This time it was, because I early voted with Katrina, is you had to fill in with a pen. And I think some of them I rushed through because when I put the ballot in, it got kicked back out because I didn't fill in the circles all the way. So, but it did not throw out my vote. So it just said, no, you need to go back and do those. All right, here's another one. Young vote, power, politics, and participation. And all of this is, of course, to say, please vote. Please vote. I love hearing your voice in the comments, and I think your voice is important to be heard in the democratic process. All right, here we go.
Well, all I feel is that, like, I'm going to try to influence my friends. I'm running. I just won an office here as treasurer. I'm going to go on running for office, I guess, and try to talk to my friends about running for an office, because I think it's very important that, you know, they be involved in starting. It starts right here at the high school with school politics, and it goes on. And even if you're not a politician, if you're an elected official here, still, you know, you might have some feeling and not feel apathetic toward the outside world.
Can everyone just please leave so it's not quite so hectic?
Andy.
Okay, here's the class officers. President, Vice President, Secretary, Treasurer.
Oh.
I think some people are afraid that their vote means nothing just because they're one of so many.
Yes, I think the voting's done more or less. It's a popularity contest. Even how girls think of them, anything. But it's not always done according to the guy's skill, mostly popularity.
Okay, let's do a signature. It seems to me that, well, we've had some intelligent individuals elected in the past, but it seems that generally it doesn't matter who's elected. Things function the same. The vote turns out to be insignificant, regardless of who's elected.
I really don't think, I know a lot of people who've run and say what they're going to do, and I've never seen anything really materialize out of what they said they're going to do. Like, they always go in and out, and they're always reasonably the same thing. Is the same situation after they're out as when they went in.
Okay, did you vote?
Yes.
Why?
I voted because I feel that, okay, it's my duty to make this a better school, and if I'm going to be a student here, I want it to be as good as I can make it. Yeah, and I voted for the people who I think will do what I want them to do. Okay. Who will listen to the people and the voice of the student body.
So how would you answer that?
Well, the reason why I don't vote is because of the fact that I just don't feel anything will be done by my one vote.
There's like a lot of similarities between elections here and elections nationally. Everyone's trying to present an image, and it's like they want you to vote for the image, not the person.
The next AFP president is David Ginsburg.
Well, let me just say that we have 11 million people in this country between the ages of 18 and 20. There are another 14 million between the ages of 21 and 24. That's a block of 25 million people. If those young people will register and vote, they can literally change the direction of the United States, and they have a moral obligation, they have a political obligation to register and vote in this election.
All right. Do you swear that everything you state before me is truthful, or? Yes. Okay. You're now a registered voter, and this is your copy of the registration. No matter what type of gimmick is used to try to register people, such as bringing down presidential candidates and and having registers circulate around the crowds, or having a rock band down, or putting out an organized effort like UCLA, 1-week program to register student voters, and have editorials in the school newspaper about urging people to register, and signs and colored balloons. It doesn't seem to affect anybody. Either they're going to register or they're not going to register. If they don't see a registrar, or if they don't have the time, they're not going to stop. See, do you mean that voting to you just mean you can't do anything with it? It's just a futile attempt?
Well, in 1964, I bird dogged to support Johnson, and he lied. And people thought that McCarthy was going to change the world, and he came out to be nothing. And I registered the Peace and Freedom Party last time, and that failed to realistically attract a base, have a popular base.
In other words, you think it's just that the politicians, or the people who are running, or just the people who are voting, or what?
Well, it's a two-party system.
Well, I mean, why not register and express your opinion? Try something instead of just, walking away and leaving it behind.
Okay, I'll register. All right, you want to register me?
Yeah, over here. I realized that people would see the system as moving too slow. And all I can say to that is that these people are impatient, and I can admit that they have a right to be impatient. It's just that when a person becomes overly impatient and then drops out, it shows that he has really no stamina to keep up with the system and to hope. He's showing a sign that he has no hope anymore.
Just about every politician you listen to has something that you can identify with, whatever he says, something that we need. And they tell you what you want to hear. But once he gets in there, none of this stuff comes true. I don't know, I choose not to vote because politics just seems like a big trick. We're here just to spread out information to people, just so people can make up their own minds, because they're going to do drugs regardless of what you tell them. A lot of the problems that people call up with are just stem from some sort of relationship, and a lot of people then get strung out on drugs, and then that becomes a problem, and you try and counsel them on how they might be able to go about kicking a habit they might have, or just to find a little peace in themselves. Like if you feel like you're helping them just a little bit, it makes you feel good, Yeah, even though I'm able to vote, I'm not going to vote, simply because I think I can do other things that'll help people and help the country or the world without just pushing a button, letting somebody else do it, supposedly.
I've seen that a lot of young people don't trust politics, and they definitely don't trust politicians. But whenever I go somewhere, I tell the young people that I'm just the beginning, and I expect them to do the same thing that I'm doing, and hopefully I'm paving the way for them, because there is hope in the democratic process.
1, 2, 3, Ivan! 1, 2, 3, Ivan! 1, 2, 3, Ivan!
Now, what is your name once more?
Yvonne.
Westbrook.
I'm Yvonne. Do you live in the city?
Oh, yes.
I'm Yvonne Westbrook. I'm running for supervisor.
Oh, I see.
Okay, so vote for me.
All right. You know Yvonne Westbrook.
Yeah, how you doing?
Yeah, sure do. Yeah, I made you.
Good to see you. Váyanse a votar. Váyanse a votar.
Por favor.
Por favor.
Para Yvonne.
Para Yvonne.
There you go.
And if we're to make that 18-year-old vote thing mean anything, and a lot of us, in here have registered, and a lot of us are going to go out there and vote, it's not going to mean a thing unless we can get somebody in office that will relate to us as young people and to us as black people and third world people. And that's what I'm going to do.
Yvonne, hey! Yvonne, hey! Yvonne, hey! Yvonne, hey!
is beautiful. Like, I've never had any problems getting the brothers to come on and work.
All right.
It's no sense in lying about it. The brothers will come on out. But to have some sisters stand up and say, we're with you, Yvonne, and we're going to be there tomorrow when you win or you lose. We're going to be right there with you. I won't become a politician that gets in office and says what's going to happen to the city. I'll ask the city what has to happen. And together, we begin to change San Francisco and make it become the human community that it should be.
Are you registered to vote?
Pardon?
Are you registered to vote?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Are you registered to vote? Would you like to register to vote now?
Yeah. You registered okay. I got to do it sooner or later.
Okay, where were you born and what state?
Minnesota.
And I've always been of the mind that the democratic system, we have a democratic system and we have rights to vote, and I felt that we should use it. And then I would point out how stupid violence is, how utterly and totally wrong it is, and how it never really works. How violence always leads to something worse than what is in present, or that a revolution leads to something worse than what is in present form. The French have a great statement for it, and I think it's le plus the more they change, the more the same. And that's how I feel.
Okay, that's all you...
Yes.
Just Gateway Boulevard?
Right. Do you swear that everything you say before me is true?
True.
Okay.
Come on, guys.
No.
They're just about as diversified as their parents. There's no solid youth bloc. And no matter how hard the schools might emphasize through their civic courses the need to be responsible, the need to vote, and the need to exercise these rights, it's how their parents worked, what their parents did that will affect what they'll do. There's no magical formula that occurs between the ages of 15 and 18 that brings a kid to awareness. It's just what type of awareness he was brought to in his family since the time of his birth.
What I do, just pull this one, I open the button for you. And then you have your ballot. And then you go vote. You pull these down over the names you want for who you're going to vote for.
Not all those.
Yeah, just whoever you're going to vote for. Then after then, you say, okay, I'll lift the button, and you bring it back over here and your ballot has been cast.
Okay. So pull this down.
Before you pull it, go ahead. All the way over. Bring it all the way over. Okay.
Good.
Push it in. Now you got it.
Okay.
This is KDIA Oakland with Louis Freeman anchoring from KDIA Election Central. Now, is your strength also going to be in that age bracket of 18 to 20?
Not only the 18 to 20s, but also the senior citizens have really been pulling for me actively throughout the entire campaign.
While I'm talking with Ms. Westbrook, can somebody give me the very latest up-to-date figures that she has?
You're an 18-year-old and you're on a rather flamboyant campaign. 2 years from now, you'll be 20. You going to try it again?
Yeah, I think it's something that black people, young people, and women have got to do if we're going to make the democratic process work for the people.
You definitely are hoping for a career in politics, is that it?
Definitely. I will be in the political arena.
I don't vote. The reason why I don't vote is because I just don't have any faith in politics or politicians.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Are you married?
No.
Okay. You have to develop some sort of program that you want put into effect and then work towards it through some form of education. And now what we're going out doing is to educate these people, the youth, to take the right to vote and to use it. All right. You swear that everything you say before me is true? Okay.
All that youthful idealism. I love it. It's a great film. Lots of afros, actually, too. Both people of color and some white dudes. All right. This is a newsreel, or a clip from a newsreel. It right off the bat, it's a spoiler, but it's still kind of great to see what it was like to vote in the 60s. Enjoy.
A record number of Americans, upwards of 67 million, go to the polls to elect the 35th President of the United States. Citizens from Maine to Hawaii record their choices as the attention of the entire globe focuses on the contest for the leadership of the most powerful nation of the free world. The Democratic nominee is an early favorite, and first returns bear out predictions in Mr. Kennedy's favor. But GOP standard-bearer Richard Nixon is staunchly supported, not least by President Eisenhower, who was up early, arriving at 6:18 a.m. at Cumberland Township, Pennsylvania, near his Gettysburg farm, to cast his ballot. Notwithstanding Ike's support, Pennsylvania's crucial 32 electoral votes were carried by Kennedy. Mrs. Eisenhower followed the president late in the day and left no doubt as to her preference as she cast her vote in the tiny Pennsylvania firehouse. Eager crowds gathered outside the West End branch of the Boston Public Library as Senator Kennedy and his pretty wife arrived at the polling place early on Election Day before flying on to Cape Cod to await the outcome. Vice President Nixon and his wife, Pat, vote in the playroom of a private home in Whittier, California, the Los Angeles suburb where Mr. Nixon grew up. Mr. Nixon's running mate on the GOP ticket, Ambassador Henry Cabot Lodge, was almost totally overshadowed on Election Day by the popular concentration on the principles in one of the most strenuously contested election battles in the nation's history. Senator Lyndon Johnson, Mr. Kennedy's running mate, shared his counterpart's plight this Election Day, as the vagaries of the popular ballot resulted in one of the closest national elections since 1916. An early lead established by Kennedy dwindled as Western and rural reports came in, although a favorable trend was established in the early hours. As the Democratic Party nationally won 15 governorships and maintained its leadership in Congress and the Senate, the early Kennedy drive bogged down. Through the long hours of the night, as local districts tallied their results, the Kennedy column recorded an electoral vote frustratingly short of the 269 necessary to win. At his Hyannisport, Massachusetts residence, the Democratic candidate and his wife stoically waited out the returns, as did Vice President Nixon on the other side of the country, who even made a quick trip across the border for an Election Day lunch. That night, Mr. Nixon appeared at local GOP headquarters with his wife to the cheers of campaign workers. At almost 4 a.m., he virtually acknowledged defeat.
As I look at the board here, while there are still some results still to come in, if the present trend continues, if Mr. Kennedy, Senator Kennedy, will be the next president of the United States. I want Senator Kennedy to know, and I want all of you to know, that certainly if this trend does continue and he does become our next president, that he will have my wholehearted support and yours.
The hours that followed were frustrating and baffling as the key returns hung in the balance. Not till the middle of the next day was the victory clinched by one of the closest margins recorded, a plurality of barely over 300,000. The unexpectedly delayed climax saw Senator Kennedy the victor with a clear margin of electoral votes. At 43 years of age, he is the youngest man ever voted into the White House and the first Catholic chief executive in the history of the nation, with victories in the Southern Bible Belt, as well as the industrial centers of the North, to attest the shattering of a long-standing political taboo. In Mr. Kennedy's first public appearance after his election, accompanied by his wife Jacqueline, his father, Financier Joseph Kennedy, makes his first appearance since the campaign began. And the weary president-elect makes his first address in his new capacity, reading aloud his answer to Mr. Nixon's message of congratulations.
In reply to the Vice President, I sent him the following wire. Vice President Nixon, Los Angeles, California. Your sincere good wishes are gratefully accepted. You are to be congratulated on a fine race. I know that the nation can continue to count on your unswerving loyalty in whatever effort you undertake, and that you and I can maintain our long-standing cordial relations in the years ahead. Sincerely, John Kennedy. To all Americans, I say that the next 4 years are going to be difficult and challenging years for us all. The election may have been a close one, but I think that there is general agreement by all of our citizens that a supreme national effort will be needed in the years ahead to move this country safely through the 1960s. I ask your help in this effort, and I can assure you that every degree of mind and spirit that I possess will be devoted to the long-range interests of the United States and to the cause of freedom around the world. So now my wife and I prepare for a new administration and for a new baby. Thank you.
That's graceful, right? Graceful. That's what we want. Graceful politics. I'll take that. Thank you. Enough said. All right. Here's another film about voting. Are you sick of it yet? Yes, you are. Already, I can tell. Even before we started, there was the comment saying, I'm very anxious about the election. So we're going to do this today. Then tomorrow, I promise it's going to be light entertainment, distracting, fun. It'll be something. It'll be something that it'll get your mind completely off of what's happening. That's what we do here at AV Geeks, is we bury our heads deep in the sand. I want you to vote. If you haven't already, I want you to vote tomorrow. But then I want you to pull back, sit back, and watch some old 16mm films from our past. That's what I'm interested in. So here's Tuesday in November. Enjoy.
It is early morning of the first Tuesday in November. This is an American city. A city that is not very large, not very rich, not very old. It is situated in the western part of the United States, in California. Its name is Riverton. The woman in the car is Mrs. Dawson, one of Riverton's 15,000 residents. She is principal of public school number 2. But today there will be no classes held here, for this is election day. This classroom is one of the 130,000 places the country over in which American citizens are going to cast their votes today. This is the table where the voters' names will be checked. The locked ballot box and the polling booth. Here it is, in the privacy of this curtained space, that the American voters every 4 years, on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November, choose their national government. Here come Mrs. Dawson's colleagues on the election board of Riverton's 7th Precinct, each representing one of the major political parties. Mr. Schwartz is a Republican who works for the streetcar company. Mrs. Abernathy is a housewife and a Democrat. Mrs. Dawson is chairman. They've all known one another for years. First, they remove the last traces of their campaign activities, their party buttons. Then they take the oath.
You swear to defend the Constitution of the United States of America and perform your duties as members of the election board to the best of your ability, so help you God.
I do.
I do.
This makes them responsible for seeing that the voting here today takes place according to the laws of the land. And now the polls are open. Here comes the first voter. No wonder he's first. He's been up since 4 o'clock delivering milk.
Oh, Bill.
Good morning, everybody.
Top line, you're the very first one. Right on the dot.
Always like to vote early, gives the Republicans a temporary lead. Here's your ballot, Bill. Thanks. Right in there.
That's as far as we can go. Remember, this is a secret vote. No one ever sees another person mark his ballot. However, if we did have miraculous powers, and if we were able just this once to follow Bill Johnson, this is what we'd see. He votes first for the chief executives, the President and Vice President of the United States. Next, he votes for a senator from his state, then a representative from his district. This man is casting his vote for a government of his own choosing under the Constitution of the United States. This is the way it's set up. There are 3 branches of the United States government: the executive branch, or president, the legislative branch, or Congress, and the judicial branch, or Supreme Court. The duties of each branch are established in the Constitution. Let's see how they work. The president is the executive head of the nation. He initiates all important policies, such as treaties with other governments and the conduct of national affairs. He is the commander-in-chief of the Army and the Navy, an important consideration in a wartime election. The vice president is the president's legal successor. The president keeps him informed on matters of state and policy. The vice president, by custom, sits as a member of the president's cabinet. The cabinet members are the heads of the executive departments of the government, such as the State Department, War Department, Treasury Department, Department of the Interior, of Labor, Commerce, and so on. The cabinet advises the president on matters of policy. The powers of the president and his helpers are limited, for this is a government not of men, but of laws, based upon the Constitution. Congress makes the laws. It is a parliament which, unlike many democratic parliaments, has no direct connection with the executive branch. This branch of the government is made up of 2 houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives. A law may originate in either house, but must be approved by both of them. When a bill is passed by both houses, it is sent to the president. If the president also approves the bill, he signs it. It then becomes law. The president may veto a bill passed by the Congress. But Congress may still, by a 2/3 majority, make the bill law. Although the chief responsibility of Congress is that of making laws, certain other responsibilities are delegated to the 2 houses. In the Senate, or upper house as it is called, each of the 48 states in the nation is represented by 2 elected members, making a total membership of 96. Small states and large have equal representation in the Senate. The Senate has 2 important functions aside from its lawmaking duties: to pass on important presidential appointments and to approve or reject all treaties with other nations initiated by the president. When a treaty is under consideration, the members of the Senate express their opinions, either of approval or of disapproval, and then a vote is taken. If 2/3 of the Senate approves of the treaty, it is in effect. In the House of Representatives, or lower house, each of the 48 states is represented in proportion to its population. The more populous of the states have the greater number of members in the House of Representatives. All measures dealing with the appropriation of money for the nation's use originate and are controlled in the lower house. The money appropriated is turned over to the President for expenditure. And the President, with the aid of the Cabinet, spends the money in the manner decided upon by the Congress, whether it be for purposes of peace or of war. Although the Congress of the United States makes the laws of the land, its powers are also limited by the Constitution. As a check on both executive and legislative branches of the government, there is a third branch, the judicial. The Supreme Court, whose members are appointed for life by the President. The Supreme Court protects the Constitution from violation by congressional laws or executive orders. The three branches, executive, legislative, and judicial, each with some power, none with all the power, check and balance each other in the manner intended by the framers of the Constitution, so that the ultimate power rests always in the hands of the voter, Bill Johnson. Having voted for a federal government, he must also choose a governor for his state, members of the state assembly, county judges, all the minor offices, and various legislative amendments. When Bill Johnson is finished, he has elected an entire government from top to bottom. That is, if a majority of the voters think the way he does about it. It's not only here in Riverton that the voting is heavy today. All over the country, people are conscious of the momentous issues facing their nation and the world. This is their way of expressing their conviction of how and by whom these issues should be met. Presidential candidates vote like all the other citizens. One of them in New York City describes himself as a lawyer. The other, up in the country where his home is, gives his occupation as farmer. For those who cannot come to the polls, an absentee ballot is provided, and the voting is supervised by the local notary. This is the same kind of ballot that in this wartime election is sent to members of the armed forces at home and abroad. These ballots are returned to be counted in their respective states. Here in Riverton, the line grows longer. The citizens are following the constitutional provision that elections are held on schedule, rain or shine, panic or prosperity, peace or war. That chalk on his sleeve is part of yesterday's history lesson, when Mrs. Dawson reminded her pupils of two other memorable elections. In 1864, with the nation in the throes of a civil war, Abraham Lincoln, one of America's greatest presidents, was opposed in a bitter campaign by one of his own generals. The people chose to re-elect Mr. Lincoln. In 1916, during the First World War, an election was held. And now again in 1944. Early in the summer, nominating conventions are held. At these traditionally noisy political jamborees, the chosen delegates of each major party meet to select a candidate for the presidency and the vice presidency of the United States. Now the candidates have been chosen. campaign is on, from president to local sheriff. For 3 months, all through the late summer and fall, wherever people come together, issues and men are discussed and argued about. Some feel that this isn't altogether a good thing, that a lot of time and energy are wasted this way. It may be, but that's the way Americans like to do it. They like to feel everybody has a right to speak and is interested enough to do it. Even the small fry. Every attempt is made by all parties to influence the people's thinking. All over the country, week after week, 140 million citizens take part in the great debate. Business, professional, and civic groups endorse one candidate or the other. For the first time in American history, organized labor takes an active part in the campaign. Radio plays a greater role than ever. Time on the air is paid for by all parties and distributed evenly among them, giving the party in office no advantage over its opponents. It is estimated that in the last days of the 1944 campaign, 70 million Americans heard the speeches of the various candidates. Now all that is over, the heat and excitement. The votes are cast, and Americans have agreed to accept the will of the majority, whatever it may be. Apparently, even the younger generation has declared peace. Now the election board begins its last duty, the counting of the votes. The figures are checked and double-checked. Then they are telephoned to headquarters.
Hello? This is Mrs. Dawson, 7th Precinct. Ready to report.
From coast to coast, precinct by precinct, city by city, state by state, the results are recorded. All over America tonight, the people are waiting to learn whom they have chosen to govern them for the next 4 years. Towards midnight, the final results are announced. A nation of 140 million has elected a government.
The War Department. They put that out. That's great. All right, what do we got? 3 more minutes. Let's go ahead and just show this. This is a Cornet film. Are You a Good Citizen? And I watched some of this and I was like, huh. besides voting and paying taxes, I'm not necessarily the best citizen. So let's see how we stack up. I'm not going to grade anybody, but yeah, I was like, okay, maybe, yeah, all right. Plus, no baseball outside.
No one was more surprised than Mr. Heinemann when he heard the news. His young friend, Jim Foster, happened to be with him when he heard it. Jim was surprised, too. But here were the representatives of the committee with the news that Mr. Heinemann had been chosen to preside over the town celebration of Citizenship Day. They had brought along an advance copy of the day's paper. In making their selection, the committee had followed a checklist, which was published in the paper. A good citizen will perform basic civic duties, take part in group activities, know and obey the law, keep informed on public affairs, be a good neighbor. When the committee left, Jim began to think about those qualifications. And as he went on to study more about citizenship and think back over the events of the past year, he came to understand what a good citizen really is. A good citizen will perform basic civic duties. What are they? You know one. Pay taxes. It's your duty to pay and know why you pay. You pay for federal courts of justice, state universities, municipal waterworks. You pay for thousands of other services which the voters have elected to receive. Before you complain about taxes, think how much it would cost if each of us had to buy these services separately. Ask yourself which of these benefits you'd care to sacrifice. Would you close the local light? Let the state highways go to ruin? Forget about national defense? There is a second basic civic duty. Your duty to serve on the jury goes with your right to trial by jury. It's also your opportunity to learn your own rights and privileges under law. Along with these basic duties comes the duty and privilege of voting, and voting intelligently. This meant a great deal to Jim.
When I'm old enough to vote, I'll use my ballot for all it's worth. I'll listen to the claims of all parties and all candidates. Then I'll try to get behind the vague promises and the alibis and get the facts so I can judge the real issues and the real candidates. And I'll be willing to get out and work for good candidates.
That brings us to our second point. A good citizen will take part in group activities. There are all sorts of groups. Associations to foster better government, welfare organizations, labor unions, religious groups, fraternal orders, men's clubs, women's clubs, political parties. When you work with any such group, you benefit, and the community benefits, through combined effort for the common good. A good citizen will know and obey the law. That may sound easy, but, well, it's against the law to break a window, but Jim broke one. That's how he happened to meet Mr. Heinemann.
You know, a piece of glass isn't very important. What matters is that it happened because you were breaking the law.
What law? We weren't doing anything wrong, honest.
It's against the law of this town to play ball in the street.
I didn't know it. Nobody ever told me about it.
Look, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Whether you break a law through ignorance, or carelessness, or wickedness, It's all law-breaking.
You make me sound like a criminal.
Sometimes it's hard to draw the line. Breaking a window pane, breaking into a bank vault, cheating in a school examination, forging a check, having a parking ticket fixed, bribing a jury. The only way to be sure where you stand is to get into the habit of obeying all the laws.
I don't think much of that law about not playing ball in the streets.
Nobody asked you. But wouldn't things be a mess if each of us decided which laws to obey and which to ignore?
Yes, I guess so. But there's no place else for us to play in the neighborhood.
What about the playground down the street?
Well, it's not very big, and it's always full of little kids, and they might get hurt. We've been playing on that big empty lot down at the corner of 12th and Grove. But somebody put up a no trespassing sign, and the cop chased us off. So, what are we going to do?
I don't know. Yet. You keep the fellows off the streets. I'll look into this. Come back Saturday morning. Maybe I'll have some news for you.
All right, I'll do that. Bye, Mr. Heineman.
Goodbye. Say, that's a neat job you're doing.
All the fellas chipped in to buy the glass.
That's good. But as I was saying, I had a talk with Mr. Carpenter, who owns that property where you fellows used to play ball. Trouble was, the neighbors were complaining that you ran all over their property, tearing up their lawns and breaking shrubs and flowers. Did you?
Well, yes, I guess so.
Well, I'm afraid they had every right to do as they did, call upon the law to protect their property.
There, how's that?
Very good. Say, you're quite the handyman.
But where does that leave us with a place to play?
I've been looking into that. Come on in. I've talked it over with some people, town officers, school officials, members of the park board. Look here. Here's the playground where the little kids play. Originally, the town owned all this property, which was to be made into a big playground.
What happened?
Oh, some shrewd operator moved in and bought the property. Because the citizens weren't alert to what was going on, he persuaded the town that it needed his money more than it needed land.
And now everything else is built up.
That's right. All but the Carpenter property.
And that's where they won't let us play.
No. But if the town were to buy the land and build a good high fence around it...
Yeah, sure. That ought to do it.
But the town doesn't have any money.
Thought it sounded too good.
You know, you're like a lot of other citizens in this town and everywhere. You haven't taken the trouble to inform yourself about how democratic government operates.
What's that got to do with it?
The way is wide open for citizens to get what they want from their government.
All we want is a place to play.
It's a good thing you want. Good for you and good for the community. So I think we can get it for you.
You can?
I said we can, if we're willing to work for it.
I'll work for it. What do I do? So we can have our playing field. See this petition? We have to get signatures so they can hold a referendum at the next town election.
Gee, that's great.
Therefore, be it resolved that this organization go on record as favoring the proposal to float a bond issue to provide a playground.
And for a few more pennies on your tax bill, your children will have a safe place to play. You will vote on our side, won't you, Mrs. Stein?
Why, yes, I will.
Well, what I don't understand is why you're going to all this trouble. You don't have any children. Why should you worry?
You might say that I want to get the kids off the street so that I don't have any broken windows. Or you might say that I'm just a busybody with nothing better to do than work for the good of our community. Either way, we're going to get that playing field.
Well, Jim and his friends got their playground. They got it mainly because Mr. Heineman knew how to go about it and went to work to help them get it. That's what it means to keep informed on public affairs and be a good neighbor. So it's really not surprising, after all, that Mr. Heineman was named first citizen of the town. He meets every test of good citizenship as outlined in the checklist. How about you? Are you a good citizen?
You see, Jim, citizenship carries with it many rights and many duties. The rights of the duties and are dependent upon them. Don't be a part-time citizen thinking only of your rights. If you neglect your duty, you may forfeit your right. Think it over.
All right, I'll pay for your window. Just stop lecturing me. Real estate person swooped in and bought up all that land, and, you know, they have to figure out a way to buy it back. So it's funny, even back then, evil land developers. We hate them. Not a fan. Not a fan. They changed the landscape of our towns, and often don't even live in our towns and don't even care. All right, there we go, soapbox. So vote tomorrow, and we will see you, and we will show you films that have nothing to do with politics. Guaranteed. Now, what will we watch? It'll be probably light entertainment. It might be very silly, might be very goofy, but it'll be fun. Very much appreciate you guys tuning in. You are the reason that we love collecting and showing films. So thank you for that. If you like what you saw, hit the thumbs up, hit the like button. You can subscribe. We are adding an inordinate amount of films to YouTube from our collection and from the Prelinger collection, stuff that we hadn't put up before. So you can watch that stuff, and we get a little bit of ad revenue, pennies, but it all adds up to helping us pay for our rentals. We have probably close to $2,000 in rentals, storage units right now, as films are off-site. And this is why we're off-site, is because they're doing renovation work at the archive. And so hopefully we'll be back there by the end of spring of next year. Knock on this fake wood. But anyways, join us tomorrow. Love you guys. And we will see you very soon.